Hello and welcome to the Quite Light podcast again. I'm Pat Yates. Today we have a great conversation. I had a chance to see Henrik out at Prosper out in Vegas. We always have a good time chatting whenever I see him. He's a sourcing agent monster. I mean, this guy really has some knowledge. He's with Gembah.com, or he's one of the founders of Gembah.com. And Gembah will help you research, design, source, and manufacture your product. Some of the things we don't talk about at Quite Light a lot of times. When we go out talk at Quite Light, we talk landed cost of goods sold and then marketing and sales, Amazon, all this. But there's steps before that. And sometimes I think people may be a little intimidated by that process or may not really understand how it works. He talks a little bit about how sometimes it's not easy to go to Alibaba and know who you're looking at. So if you think you're finding a manufacturer, many times you may not be. You may be finding a middle person and your relationship may not be directly with the factory that you're working with. So I think that sometimes if you don't know something, it's better to reach out and see if you can get some information about it. And I think Henrik is going to be a great resource for that. So I'm anxious to talk to him here in a minute, but also wanted to make sure that I mentioned that if anyone is out there looking for information on their business, trying to get a valuation, thinking about selling, obviously that's what we do at Quite Light. It's a weird business environment right now. A lot of people worry about interest rates, having issues sourcing, raising money, being able to look at whether they're selling or not. Please understand at Quite Light that you can always reach out to us. We love having conversations that are actionable for entrepreneurs to maybe prepare you to exit your business. If you never need help from me, you can email me at pat@quitelight.com. Today, I'm excited about this. Henrik's an awesome dude, and he's really got some great info. So let's get right to it. Henrik, it's great to have you in the Quite Light podcast today. How you doing?
Thanks for having me, Pat.
Yeah, it's exciting to talk to you. I know we just saw each other at Prosper. We got a chance to talk a little bit. It's great to always see you. And as we talked about it, we knew Gembah was going through a lot of different things. You were doing some new things. You had a lot of things to report. So we thought it's a great time to get back on the podcast. So for our listeners out there that are all entrepreneurs, most likely, and some are buyers, sellers, things like that, you're going to cross over to everyone. So I'm really excited about that. Yeah. Give us an overview of Gembah and what you guys do.
Yeah, I think the simplest way to describe it is really that we help brands and sellers to develop new products, right? And at a more detailed level, like anywhere from back of a napkin sketch, if you have a product idea, all the way to finished product on the shelf. So all the steps from research, product validation, figuring out what features that you want to build into a product and to see what kind of market opportunity it is, what the competition looks like. And once you identify that, you're going to design, and we have a network of over 500 designers and engineers. So we connect them with the best people for that specific product. And then we also have thousands of factories in our network. So we take them through the sourcing and manufacturing piece too. And it's a la carte. So if someone already have a product and they just want help to go through sourcing and manufacturing, they can do that. But most of our customers come in with a level, a concept, and then we help them through all the way to finished product.
That's really awesome. I think that when we talked about the steps that go into this, we'll go down pretty slowly. So let's talk about the first. The first one was research, which gives me the most questions of any of them, because I know people, I'm not a professional internet guy, but I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express one time. I can go on there and search for products, look for manufacturers overseas, look for them all kinds of places, but you really, Chuck always uses the term at Quite Light, you don't know what you don't know. So sometimes it's better to have good knowledge. Tell us about what kind of research needs to go into a product, whether it's one that's adding to your line or starting a new business?
Yeah. I mean, I think that some of the most important thing is that you pursue a product opportunity. There's a lot of opportunities out there, right? But to figure out, do I have the budget to compete in this product category, right? So there's a lot of great tools like Helium Ton and Jungle Scout and Zone Guru and Data Dive and others that are a good research tool. And that's a great first step to research the product category that you're in. But sometimes those tools can be pretty overwhelming too. That's virtually an unlimited amount of data. So how do you figure out really, is this the right opportunity for you to make sure that you don't go up against big brands like Nike or Under Armour or someone like that, or other, just well-funded Amazon sellers. So I think that there's a couple of steps to that, right? That first, if you have an existing product idea, to use multiple tools to research it, to see, what is the market opportunity there. And then what we often help with is to identify the features that you want to, use to differentiate your product. in our experience, and would love to hear if you've seen the same thing, that a few years ago, before the pandemic, you could go on Amazon and find an under-marketed listing, right? Something that didn't have great reviews or didn't have an optimized listing. And then you could go find that product on Amazon and sell it and build a multi-million-dollar business. What we're seeing is that opportunity has significantly shrunk or completely disappeared. So if you're going to be successful today, we believe that you have to have differentiated product, unique products that you are the only seller of, that you can differentiate somehow. And I think the research stage is really we figure out how can you make this product differentiated in a way that there actually demand for out there. So we help people look at ratings and reviews for existing products. There are top sellers. We look at what 1-star reviews have in common, 5-star reviews in common, to figure out what are the features that consumers are actually looking for in products. So you can help either validate or invalidate an idea or a concept. And sometimes we help people come up with new concepts because they see suddenly things that they didn't expect. So it's very data driven. And the goal is always to come up with a product opportunity that if you go forward and create that product, it's actually going to sell.
Let me ask another question, a couple of questions about research. I think a lot of times, let's say it's brand new, guys, an idea or concept, but you still really don't know a lot about it. When they come into you, do you all look at patents and trademarks and cross that and help them? Is that part of the process, or they need to go to an attorney to be able to do that as well?
Yeah, great question. We get that question all the time. So we're not patent attorneys, so we can't provide legal advice. We do have several partners that we recommend. But typically what we do as part of this research is to identify, competitive products, similar products, and try to identify differentiation. So we would never recommend to a customer to go and create a product that looks exactly like something else, or, has the exact features of another product. You know this better than me probably, but, Amazon typically only care about or help enforce design patents. They don't get involved in utility patents, but because it's too complicated, they're not going to try to figure out if a product works the same or have the same inner component as another one. But so we always help them do the best research we can at sort of the design level. And if they believe that there are features that are unique, we recommend one of our legal partners that can help them find a design patent if they want to.
That's great. When I was reviewing Gembah.com, I was taking a look at one page that had some bullet points on the benefits of joining, and all of them seemed like they were in the research and sort of planning area. Let me read those real quick. Launch new products faster, develop more relevant products, expand opportunities to upsell, increase margin and profitability, and stay ahead of competition. That's 5 really important things all wrapped into one. And a lot of times people may underestimate which one of those is most important or which are least, and maybe they are all very important. Can you talk a little bit to say, for instance, like launch new products faster? If you're 6 months faster, then you're in business 6 months before you could be on your own. Which one of these are the most important? Or are they all sort of intermingled?
Yeah, man, great question. I think they're all intermingled to some extent, right? Yeah, you can launch a product faster, which is great, but to your point, it's like if that's not a unique product, if it's just a copycat of someone else, it doesn't matter. So I think you kind of have to get every phase of this right, which is why it's so complex and why so many people fail in the process. I think that you have to make sure that you're, just like if you're building a house or building a software program, to make sure that you have you're focused in the right area up front saves you a lot of headache later on the progress, right? In the process. So if you pick a product that's highly competitive, you pick a product that's really complex and it's going to be very expensive to make, those are things that's going to hurt you downstream. So I think that's one of the key values that Gembah really provides, is that we have all these 4 components: research, design, sourcing, and manufacturing under one umbrella, so that as soon as we start research, we start talking to factories, we start talking to designers, so that you can look at all the different aspects of the product and its profitability and how much it's going to cost at the same time, so that you don't do them sequentially. One thing we see a lot is people go to, some fancy product design agency and they come up with beautiful pictures and drawings of products. It's like, wow, they're super excited. And then they come to us and we start talking to factories, and factories are like, we can't make that thing, or it's going to cost you $100,000 in tooling to make it, and your unit cost is going to be $40 when they think it should be 20, right? So to me, you have to look at all those components and that they're intertwined. Yeah, that's my long-winded answer to your question.
Oh, no, that's a great answer, because I think part of the issue when people are either developing new products inside their business or have never developed a product, there's a lot of anxiety to that, because you have so many steps of quality and manufacturing, and how you compartmentalize that sometimes says whether the business can actually get off the ground, because some people may give up if they're frustrated enough. So let's talk a little bit about the second part. So you've done the research, you figured it out. We've talked with Henrik. He's got us in a position we know what the product is, but hey, we need to design it now. Maybe there's some widgets to it that we need to either print, or we have to do other things. Tell us a little bit about how that intertwines with Gembah as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So first, as I mentioned, we have a large network of designers, experts. So it's industrial designers, electrical engineers, mechanical engineers. So whatever project comes in, whether it's a set of headphones, an inflatable tent, or bicycle helmet, we generally have a designer, engineer in our network that have worked on that specific product. And that is huge value to the customer, to the brand, because there's a lot of designers and engineers out there, but if they haven't worked specifically with the type of product you're trying to create, their value is going to be limited, right? You want to work with someone, if you're making headphones, you want to work with someone that worked at Bose. You're making a vacuum cleaner, you want to have someone that worked at Dyson that can really come in with expertise, a decade of expertise that you can get. So I think that's key, working with the right people. Then I'd say the other piece is DFM, design for manufacturing. Like I mentioned before, a lot of folks come up with pretty designs, and then but that can't be manufactured, at least not affordably. And now with Midjourney and other tools like that, it's very, very easy to come up with cool product images, but they're not truly product designs, right? You can bring that image to a factory, and they may try to work with you and try to make it real, but that's a really risky path to take, right? You don't know how the factory is going to interpret what you're bringing them. So it's become really easy to create product imagery, but that doesn't mean that that's a product design. You know, you really need the full design spec for the factory to be able to quote towards your product. And then I think, you know, in addition to design for manufacturing, we always start talking to the factories through the design process, because I think one of the biggest mistakes you can make, I mean, unless you have a true innovation, a brand new idea, something that's never been made before, then you probably don't have any other option than go through a traditional sort of product design phase. But I'd say most Amazon sellers are satisfied with an incremental improvement to an existing product. And if that's what you're doing, I think you should always start talking to factories during the design phase, right? Because rather than starting with a blank canvas, you can start with what's possible, what's being done today, and then talk to the factories about, okay, here's my idea, and you know, compare that to what's feasible, what they can do today, and in collaboration with the designer and the factory, you can typically in a much shorter time frame come up with a unique, differentiated product that's a variation of an existing product, and that's going to make it much faster and less risky to bring that product to market.
You know, that's a great point, because I think, and we'll move on a little bit, but some of these steps you can do concurrently. So if people think, well, it's a start stop, it's really not like that, because you're going through design process and conceptual idea. You probably have access to a lot of vendors and that have done something similar. Maybe if it's like injection molding, let's use as an example, you might have a place that's done that before that you can work on that. Is that typically how this works, that once you get the idea, things move a little quicker in all segments?
100%. It's like the bundle saves you money, right? And saves you time, because if you just do one step at a time, you do design in isolation from sourcing, and then you pause, and then you start going out sourcing, and then when you're done sourcing, you pause again. It is much more cost efficient and I think less risky if all the steps are intertwined, right? You said it's an iterative process, and that you have some flexibility, which I think most sellers have, that they're really trying to add a new revenue stream to their company, right? To their brand. It's not that they needed it to look exactly this way, but they want a product that kind of does this thing, right? They may have an insulated drinking cup, and they figured out that people are scared of burning their tongue, so they want to create a temperature gauge on it, right?
Yeah.
This ridge doesn't have to be there. It hasn't be, they're not like they know 100% of the feature. They know a few things that they want to change. And if you can go to the right factory that have the right capabilities and share your vision, share what's immutable, what has to be, and share what's flexible, then we've found that for the right factory partners, you can significantly reduce the time and cost to get to market by collaborating with them during the design phase.
That's really interesting. So I just have a question. Are most of your clients that come in, out of 100, what percentage already have a business and they're looking to expand it? And what portion are, hey, I'm a new startup and I got to start from zero?
Yeah, I'd say 90% of our customers already have an existing business. Maybe 30% of our leads, but we try to help as many as possible, but we get a lot of leads that come to us for help, but they have almost no budget. And
Right.
Unfortunate thing is that we can make it less expensive and faster to bring a product to market, but unless you have 10 grand or something, then you probably shouldn't try to start a product business, right? You got to have at least 10 grand or so for product development. And then of course you need to have enough funding to place your first purchase order and, stand up the business and marketing expense and such. And there's definitely a lot. We get hundreds of inbound requests every month of people that want to start a business, but just don't have any money at all. So the people that, go ahead, sir.
Let me expand on that as well. Let's say someone already has an existing business. They have, let's say 50 items and they sell on Amazon and it's all focused in the baby. I'm just going to make baby up. If they call you up, Henrik, and they sit down, do you have suggestions? I noticed on your site, you have some items, but it's probably limited in some sources. Maybe if someone's thinking, hey, I have to expand, I don't know how to start. Is it better to come in and talk about that? And then you help lead them to things that might be good that in the market?
Yeah, we get a lot of both. So you bring up the marketplace that we just launched it last year. So one thing that happened during the pandemic or after the pandemic was that we realized we had built this engine. We had built this research engine that can help identify new product opportunities by sifting through all the data and pull out features that consumers are asking for. So pre-pandemic, we just waited for brands to come to us with ideas and we helped them implement them. But what we launched it last year is the world's first future product marketplace, which basically takes these ideas that we've identified and put them on the marketplace. You can go to brand.gembah.com to check it out. And there we have a selection of different ideas. Like you said, it's in our most common categories like pet and baby and toys and sports and outdoors, home and kitchen. And brands can come in and browse that. And if they see something they like, they can just purchase that concept right away. And we will provide the CAD and an introduction to factories. Or they can, what we've seen too, is a lot of people come in, they look in the marketplace, they get inspired, and then they just submit a custom product request. They may see something they like, but it's not exactly what they're looking for. And then it turns into more of a traditional product. So going back to your original question, I'd say most people have some idea what they want to create, but we also do get folks that come in and say, hey, I don't know what to launch next. Help me figure out what to do next. And we can help with both.
Man, that's amazing because that gives people sort of a free roll to come in and say, hey, how can my business improve? And if there's nothing there, then nothing gained. But you may find some things out that are pretty amazing. So let's move on to the third part. So sourcing. A lot of people think, I have an iPhone, I got the internet now, I can source anything. I'll just find a factory. But a lot of times, again, they don't know what they don't know. So when it comes down to sourcing, and I know manufacturing is the fourth and maybe it ties in, but how does sourcing really tie into this? And why is it important, to come in and talk to you guys about this?
Yeah, I mean, you're 100% right. It is not hard today to find a factory that can create something, right? I think that the hard part is to finding the right factory to work with. Like anybody can go on Alibaba and find a factory. You can search for the type of product you're making. I think the problem with Alibaba is often that, a minority of the vendors or suppliers that are listed in Alibaba are not actual factories. A lot of them are middlemen, trading companies. Some of them are just scammers, right? That list other people's products. So it's unless you're experienced, a lot of people are experienced, so they can manage that jungle themselves. But if you're not experienced, we recommend that you hire someone that can help you find the right factory, to vet the right factory, to make sure they're socially compliant, that they don't have child labor, slave labor, And Pat, I'm sure you've traveled over there too. Sometimes folks even have showcase factories. If you come over and visit, they have one really nice factory that's clean and the machinery is new. And then when you leave, they send it off to Vietnam or some other place, lower cost country. So you really have to validate everything over there and make sure that that the factory is who they say they are, that the products are made in the factory. And it's somebody you can trust, that have been around for years, ideally decades, that have made similar products. And we always, for all our factories, we have feet on the street. We have a team in China, we have a team in India, we have individuals in several other countries. So before we go into actual production on any product, we have people in that country going to visit the factory to ensure that they meet the standards that they've said that they do, and that you are actually there to see that the products are made in that factory.
That's great. Let me ask you a different question on the manufacturing. Let's say there's a solopreneur out there that, has had products and sells and has one manufacturer, which means you're only one catastrophic event from having no manufacturers. Yeah. Do you suggest that people, even if they have great manufacturing, everything's to be great right now, that they come to talk to you so it's not only a secondary check of what they're actually getting, but also maybe have potentially a fallback in kind of that situation, and maybe you blend that manufacturing to make sure exactly where it's at? Because sometimes you may feel very comfortable, you're in a great place, but you may not know that you aren't. So have you experienced that as well?
Yeah, 100%. We help a lot of customers either relocate their supply chain or augment and diversify the supply chain. That's been a trend. A lot of folks, because of the geopolitical climate, the tariffs and such, there's definitely been a trend. Folks moving away from China more and more, try to find different locations. As it's not easy to do for all types of products. There's certain areas where China is still, by far the best location. But we see a trend of particular folks in America trying to get out of China where they can, or try to diversify from China. And especially since recently one of our presidential candidates mentioned that he's going to raise tariffs to 60% on anything that comes out of China, we've seen a pretty dramatic upswing in requests, because brands are looking at it and say, well, if there's 60% tariff for my business, how am I going to survive? I can't continue to do that. So we're getting a lot of requests right now. People are trying to find alternative sourcing regions outside of China.
Yeah, I definitely know that's a move. And I think a lot of people don't realize that, especially like injection molding, some other things, people are trying to move some manufacture to Mexico. Sometimes you get that in the United States really quickly. I did a couple of trips to Mexico for the Mexico show when they were talking about manufacturing, spent a lot of time there. Are there specific areas of the country that you work in, or do you look pretty broad all across the world for any kind of manufacturing?
Yeah, we look pretty broad, but we definitely, our strongest hubs are China and India. And then I'd say the second tier is Mexico, Vietnam, Thailand, Colombia. We have a handful of countries where we have local folks too, but China and India are still the biggest. Like you said, Mexico has, I think a lot of people have tried Mexico, and we do have quite a lot of projects down there, but it hasn't been, I'd say most customers have struggled to shift there, because at least today, the Mexican factories are not really set up to service a US small business the way that China is, right? Often they don't have catalogs, they don't have customer service reps that speak English, they don't have websites. So I think it's one thing if you are a larger company or mid-sized company and you have, you place $1 million purchase orders, then I think Mexico can be a valid alternative. But typically they're not going to mess with a solopreneur that's trying to place an MOQ of $25,000, right? You're going to have a hard time finding a factory in Mexico that's going to want to work with you.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think that when you tie all these things together, I think a lot of people look at this and they may be intimidated by the process, because it seems like you're getting someone involved in the middle of your manufacturing and development process. Some people may be intimidated by the cost to do that. Can you talk a little bit about how Gembah structures that? I mean, I'm sure it's something that you're going to gain a lot more than you're going to spend in a lot of ways, but maybe on the surface, people may not understand that.
Yeah, it's a great question. So number one, we're completely transparent in everything that we do. our customers talk directly to the designers. They talk directly to the factories. When the factory quotes something back, we share those quotes. All of your listeners may not be aware, but often when you work with a sourcing agent, they are sitting between the customer and the factory, and they're basically quoting one price, and you don't really know what their cost is, right? So they can have a 10% markup, or they can have a 50% markup. You wouldn't know, because the sourcing agents is not typically transparent. We're 100% transparent. We charge fees for our services, but they're very affordable. On the design side, we put a small markup on the designers and the engineers' fees. And once we get into supply chain, we assign a virtual supply chain team in whatever the location is. So you get a fractional compliance person, logistics person, QC person, product safety testing. So it's a very cost-effective solution that brings together multiple, categories of expertise, so that it's really a more cost-effective solution than if you're just trying to hire one guy in China or one guy in India, or just try to do it yourself, right? To be able to have a team of experts that's working on your behalf, that is completely transparent about what's going on in the factory, it's really pretty powerful. And we have a software platform too, so that our customers, whenever production run is done, whenever we do QC, all those QC files, test reports, everything is uploaded into the platform, so they can log in and look at it and say, oh, I had a production run last night. Here's how it went. Here's what the error reports, QC reports, and it's almost like they were there on the factory floor themselves.
Yeah, that's great. So again, we're talking with Henrik Johansson with Gembah. I know that you have a lot of clients you work with. We talked and you said you do anything from small, micro people that are startup up to large businesses. Tell us about the best client for you guys, and maybe it's about anybody.
No, it's a great question. Like I said before, I think we're a very cost-effective solution, but there's still costs associated, right? If you don't have at least 10 grand or so to spend on this, then I don't think, well, one, I don't think Gembah's the right solution. Two, maybe you should look at more, other solutions than developing your own products. Sure. There are different ways to go to do e-commerce. But so I'd say our ICP, our ideal customer profile, is sort of $1 million in revenue and above, all the way up to $50-100 million. Most of our customers, I say, is in the 1 to 20 million in revenues. They have multiple SKUs. Our top categories are sports and outdoors, home and kitchen, pet, baby, and toy. And that covers a lot of different, types of products. Typical customer has, like we said earlier, they're already selling something, so they kind of figured out the sales motion. They're good e-commerce folks, but they probably don't have internal engineers, designers, and supply chain experts, maybe. And in some case, like you and I talked about earlier, some of our bigger customers, they may have designers and engineers, but maybe not in all product categories. So we're working with a famous kitchenware brand. There's a celebrity chef that's their spokesperson. And they're making pots and pans. They don't need Gembah's help with pots and pans because they've been doing that forever, but they wanted to create a new sophisticated kitchen accessory machine that required electrical and mechanical engineering. So they came to Gembah for that, because they didn't want to have to go through the hiring process of bringing in that expertise internally, since it wasn't sort of their main business. But they came to us. We put in the best people we could find in the world in doing it, and they're about to launch that product now. So that's sort of a few of the different types of companies that engage with us and why.
That's a great answer. I think it leaves people sort of wide open. I think that many people sit around and have these ideas, like, I want to make this product. I've said it 100 times. If I made all the products I thought of, I'd be a trillionaire. I'd be like way ahead of people, because I had some pretty good ideas that I just sort of left sitting on the floor. I mean, as people are going through this process, if they just want to go through an idea with you, I mean, is that okay to call and talk with some of your people and say, hey, I just thought about this, but I don't know how to start? Is that a good place to start? Like you mentioned, there's a certain amount of dollars you need to spend, but sometimes people don't know the scope of what they're doing. So how do you address that?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we recommend anybody, you can go to Gembah.com, on the homepage that says get a quote. You click that button and there's a few questions that you can go through. and we will help direct you in the right direction. We may not be able to help 100% of the folks to come in, but once they answer those questions, we'll come back with a recommendation to say, here's how we think we can help. If we can't help, then we'll be frank about that. It's something we learned the hard way through the first years of a business. For a while we said yes to everything because we wanted to grow fast, but then you realize that if somebody's coming in and want a bug zapping drone or something, some product that you've never worked on before, is like that may not be the right thing for us, right? So we make the best recommendation with a client in mind and try to direct them in the right for the right path for them. And for some it may be to go through a $50,000 design project if they have a really innovative, unique idea that they could patent, right? Many customers come in and we say, yeah, that looks like what we call D2M, direct to manufacturing, where we will do some design research work with them, but then pretty quickly go to the factories and see what's possible. And when we do that in general, we can significantly reduce the time, cost, and risk of bringing new product to market. So instead of it taking 9 to 12 months and 50 grand, you can get it done in 3 to 4 months and have a product on shelf much faster for a much lower cost.
That's great. So I don't think, in this scope, one thing we didn't talk about that kind of sticks out in my mind, and maybe this isn't something you all necessarily do. One of the things I think people may struggle with is packaging and things like that they may use to market their business. Let's say that going to the manufacturer, like as an example, you might want to put your brand name on the outside of the box. You may want a sticker on there. You may want to do a clear packaging on some of your things. Or is that something that you all help with, or you just maybe have consultants that you can point them to?
Yeah, absolutely. Since we operate as a marketplace, even the designers and engineers and the factories are not Gembah employees. And similar in our expert category, we have package design. We have, like we talked about legal before, we have branding partners. So we can help with all that. It's not Gembah technically is doing it, but we have vetted partners that we worked with before. And I mean, it's a real good point. I think we make an effort to make sure every proposal we create, we say, this is what we do. Here are things that you should do that are not included in this proposal to just, particularly for folks that are doing this for the first time. We point out that you have to make sure you do these things, the packaging, the branding, the compliance, all these things that they're not included in our fees, but we can always help recommend someone that can help with that.
That's a great service, because I think a lot of times people think, well, I know everything I need to do, but there's always something new. And sometimes in manufacturing, you even have requirements that people won't realize. And hopefully you guys help them get past that. It's been an amazing conversation. I would encourage anyone that's thinking about even, maybe even a product you have that's successful, that may even another alliteration, another manufacturer, a way of doing business that you guys may have real interest in. So Henrik, if people wanted to reach out to you and talk to you about Gembah, how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, so my email is henrik@gembah.com. It's HENRIK @Gembah. This is GEMBAH.com. And I'm sure it's at the bottom of the podcast list too. But yeah, feel free to email me. I love talking to entrepreneurs and product innovators. It's one of my favorite things to do. And you can also just go on the website, browse around and click get a quote. They'll ask you a few questions. They'll connect you with an expert that can help make a recommendation. And like I said earlier, we're super transparent. We're not going to try to take your money and trick you into anything, right? We can help you. We'll give you a proposal within 48 hours and let you know what it would cost. And if you don't want to move forward with Gembah, then there's no fees required at all. We're just here. We're trying to help entrepreneurs, solopreneurs to turn innovation into real products and help people more successful.
That's a quite like, philosophy too. We want to add value wherever we can. And every time you and I talk, I get passionate about that. I think you guys do such an amazing job, because I think it's difficult for people to realize. They think about, how am I going to operate Amazon? How am I going to advertise? They think all post-transaction of manufacturing, that's where their mind goes. But before that, you can find ways for pennies, dimes, quarters, and dollars to leak out the door, and then bad situations that could have, interrupt your supply chain. So I think it's important to talk to someone like that. I really appreciate you coming on the Quiet Light podcast today. I think if anybody's out there, please reach out to Gembah, talk about your product, see if they can improve it, help you manufacture. You're a friend of Quiet Light. We're always appreciative of your time. I thank you for being here, Henrik.
Thanks, Pat. Appreciate it. Have a great day.
Bye.